Ni aje would say, how are you? And then the man paused and he laughed like Denzel Washington. Do you remember that? I thought that was interesting. Now, good evening. With your indulgence, I want to take you from the snow-capped mountain tops, avalanche spitting Himalayas mountains, to the low-lying Italian Mediterranean coast. And as I do this, I want to take a few steps back to when I joined university and I was paired up with a gentleman. I went about 2-3 weeks late and I was paired up with this gentleman who everybody thought was mad simply because he had beaten up somebody a few days earlier for trying to tell him not to drink and to do all the things that university students do. And every other day he kept on praying for him. So one day this guy got up when he was drunk and beat him up. So when I joined the university and I went to this room, my friends told me, you're going to die. But about 3 months, the guy looked at me and said, Ken, you're mad. And after that, of course, I spent another 3 years with him. But I think what really takes me back to him is because that guy, sober or drunk, or sober or drunk, would constantly say, life is not a rehearsal. And we kept on saying, life is not a rehearsal. And I think that got into me. And as it was getting into me, I started telling myself it is important to feel life. It is important to work hard, feel hard. It is important to play hard. And it is important to play deep. And so I want to talk about leisure, I want to talk about pleasure, and I want to talk about reflecting. About a year ago, an American friend of ours, we were having we usually have a men's gathering once every year. Women don't ask us why, but it's just men. And an American friend of ours came and told us about some sailing he has been doing around the world, Californian coast, Vancouver, British Virgin Islands, and he went on, Croatia. And I asked him, could we join you? And he says, you can. And we said, we are serious. And so throughout that sitting, he then proposed. He asked how many men would want to do this. And about 8 of us lifted our hands. And so, as fate would have it, he came back to Kenya and we had 2 meetings. And he told us about sailing. Somebody say sailing. Sailing. How many of you have ever gone sailing? One. And so he told us what it will take. He set us up for that sailing, including having shoes that have a white sole. I've never bought a shoe with a white sole, but he told us you must have a shoe with a white sole because you don't want marks on the boat. And so off we were, and we found ourselves in Rome. Our Italians call it Roma. And because we had 1 day to leave Rome, as we headed for where we were going to sail, we went round Rome, and we saw the Colosseum. The big gladiatory theater of the Romans. We saw the big avenues that Caesar used to walk through as he was coming back home after conquering. We saw the Circus Maximus, which sat 250,000 people. By the way, Kasarani sits only 60,000. We saw the St. Peter's Basilica, which was built in 1626. And by the way, the Colosseum was built in 70 AD. And as I was looking at all these things, I kept on asking, what about us? What about you guys? But as I went back to the hotel, and I turned the history pages in my mind, I started remembering that actually, you know what? We built the pyramids. The pyramids were built by black guys. And they were built 4,000 years ago. 4,000 years ago, which means that is 2000 BC, not 70 AD. I went through our history, Ghana Mali Songhai. And I remembered Songhai. The great Songhai city was built in 1325. That was before 1626. And I went down to Great Zimbabwe. That was built with stone long before the white man actually built with stone. And of course, somebody in history actually wrote down that Great Zimbabwe was built by stray Roman generals. If only they knew where Great Zimbabwe was relative to Rome. I remembered the history of a community that is called the Dogon. And by the way, the Dogon, they exist in Western Africa. Today they are like a bushman tribe, but it is said that they were part of the community that ran out of Egypt when Alexander the Great invaded Egypt. A lot of the people ran into Africa. Incidentally, by the way, there are more pyramids in Sudan than there are in Egypt, but nobody talks about it, and you guys don't even know. Do you know? Okay, let's go on. Let's talk to the ones who don't know. And the story of the Dogon is told that they have these caves where they live. And by the way, these days, like I said, these days they are like a primitive, a tribe. And about 50 years ago, a gentleman from Europe heard about them and went there. He had heard that they had actually mapped out the stars on a white cave. In their caves they had put some plasters of limestone. And they had mapped out all the stars. It took him about 7 years for them to allow him to enter those shrines, because for them they were shrines. And when he got there, they told him the story. And then they told him, wait a minute, this is not all. They told him that every 300 years, a black star appears over here. The guy said, how do you guys know? These guys didn't even have telescopes and stuff like that. But gave them benefit of doubt. When he went back home, he was a scientist. He set up the equipment. And true to form, by the way, they told him that the 300 years was coming in about the next 5 years. And true to the story of the Dogon, the black star appeared. And that's why it's called today the Dogon star. I fell asleep. Knowing that we had not done too badly, despite the fact that now we are doing badly. The next day we got up and we headed to Naples. We had to go to Naples because from Naples we were taking a boat to an island called Procida. Somebody say Procida. And when we got to Procida, a nice old Italian town full of color and splendor, we then went to the marina. And for the first time we sighted the boat. She was called a she. We sighted her. And we got on board and we were taught what we were supposed to do. Incidentally, we were 7 black guys, 1 Muzungu friend of ours, and then the skipper, of course, was an American, and then there was a lady, a skipper, who basically was our captain. So we were about 10 on that boat. So we were taken through the ropes. This is the mainsail. This is the port side. These are the ropes. This is the boom. And we were told, okay, you learn as we go. So that night we slept on the boat. And the next day we set sail. And for the next 10 days, we sailed through those exotic islands. We went to Ischia. We went to Amalfi. We went to Capri. We went to Sorrento. And let me tell you what was very interesting. Every time, because we kept on hopping from island to island, every time we went into the marina, people would look at us like, who are these Africans? And I remember at one particular port, I think it was Amalfi, when we got on and we were talking with Italiano. One Italiano said, Americano? Because, how can an African get here? Africans are trying to cross from Libya too. So he says, Americano? I say no, Kenyano. And then he says, running? I say no, sailing. But I tell you, one of the things I cannot forget was the color. Those towns are pretty old. Incidentally, by the way, every one of those small, island towns has a church. Again, that was built in 1800, 1600, ornate. You should see the carvings inside there, the statues of all the saints. In fact, every time you enter there, you feel God. And of course, it was summer. And so everybody was out in their beach shorts. I had mine also. Despite my Kikuyu. Legs. And I couldn't help but just watch. You know, the Italian ladies. Everybody was out in their bikinis. And so I sent my wife, she's here by the way, yeah? I sent her a WhatsApp and said, woo, bikinis, bikinis. Everywhere. And she said, watch but don't. But you know, in all these things, for me, it was a great learning. I mean, 10 days on a boat. And by the way, most of the men who were on that boat are pretty serious people. People who work hard, think hard. And of course, now they were playing hard. And many of them had never taken a block of 10 days doing nothing but sailing. We got to learn the difference between motoring and sailing. Motoring is when you're using the motorboat. Sailing is when you go and put up the mast very fast and everybody's running. And these are CEOs, by the way, running, hey, do this, do that, do this. We cooked, we washed. In fact, there was this joke. You know, every time we came to the marina, we had to wash, you know, the salt water off the boat. And of course, we are there washing the boat and we are telling our friend, the American, you know, if the Coast Guard comes here, our visa said, don't work. But there was also something else that was there to behold. You know, our boat, our yacht, was a 50-foot yacht, which by all standards was much bigger than a lot of the boats in the marinas, right? But along came the real yachts. We went to an island, called Capri, and Capri is where the big kahunas go. And as we were sailing in, our boat was looking like a dinghy. You know, there were these guys who had yachts that were 3-4 stories. And to boot, there was one guy, by the way, I mean, we were agape. Not only did he have his big yacht, he had another yacht that was carrying his toys, a helicopter, jet skis, speedboats, and the servants. And you know, again, I got reflecting. I said to myself, you know, in Nairobi, there are some people who own 1, 2, 3 buildings in Nairobi, and we won't stop listening. They are everywhere just because they own 1, 2, 3 buildings. And we wanted to know, okay, we had hired this sun sail boat collectively, and we, got to the captain on one of these things in one of the marinas and said, if we wanted to hire a boat like that, what it would cost us? He said, well, not a lot of money, if you have it. He says, it's about 450,000 euros a week. That is about 45 million shillings a week. And the guys were just saying. And it really got us reflecting because we thought in that boat, I mean, relative to you guys, we were the kahunas, But we saw the real kahunas. And we were saying to ourselves, I think we need to rejig our thinking and our plans and what we think life is. And so, in the boat, we talked about things, some deep things. Men don't talk deep things. We didn't cry, yeah? But when you're locked up in a boat, just 10 people, you just find yourself talking. I think for me, it was a great and good trip. That was good. That is what the Italians called buono. Yeah? When they talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, they talk of buono, they talk of cattivo, and they talk of brutto, good, bad, and ugly. So that was buono. The bad. Are you guys so quiet? Oh, you're listening to me? Oh, okay. Just checking, eh? Just checking. Italian taxis, my friends. Oh, they are a piece of work. From the very first day we got to Fiumicino, and they took us to a hotel that's just next to the airport. When they got us there, we asked him how much. He says, 55 euro. We say 55 euro? He said, yeah, 55 euro. But we say just 5 kilometers. Say 55 euro. Okay, so we pay. And then when we decided to go around and see it, Rome, we would see the Colosseum here, then we see it here. Then we see it here. Then you see Vatican here, then you see it here. So I asked this guy, and the clock is ticking. So I asked the driver, hey, how many Colosseum in Rome? And he said 1. I said, but I see 4. He said, you drink something. And of course, some of them tended even to be a bit dirty. A bit dirty. And I think the worst experience we had was when we were coming back. By the way, they kept on fleecing us, off money and taking us in circles. You got this feeling that we're taking you in circles. So when we came back now from Napoli, going to Rome, to come back home, we get to the railway station in Roma, and we tell them we want to go to Fiumicino. And this is about 1 o'clock. So there are about very few taxis. And so we were 4 of us. And, we had gotten accustomed to taking a taxi, at least 2 taxis when we were both groups, but 1 group had basically gone. And so we needed a taxi to take us to the airport. And they refused for 4 of us to enter the taxi. And we asked why. They say baggage. But we say, look, we've been moving with this baggage. They say, you either take it or leave it. And so we say we leave it. Well, we are pissed off. We leave it. Now we're wondering, okay, we are saying we leave it. What do we do? But then one of the men said, I'm going to find something we can go with. And so quickly he goes, walks around, and comes back with this van. So this guy says he's going to take us to the airport. He says, how much? He says 55 euros. The other guys had told us 55 euros, but they wanted 2 taxis, which meant 110 euros. We are not going to pay. So we get into this van, and we tell him, look, we don't want to go straight to the airport. We want you drop us at a hotel, which was not too far out of Rome. And then we'll take another taxi from the hotel to the airport. And the reason we're doing that is because we're carrying somebody's bags which needed to be dropped there. And so we ask him how much. He says 55 euro. We say, but wait, it's just 5. He says 55 euro. So we say fine. We were not even too sure, by the way, the distance. So we were so sure that after that 55 euro, we'll enter the airport, So we go. After we get to the hotel, it's about now 1:30, going to 2. We are hungry. The place is closed. So we say, where can we find food? We're told we can get food just somewhere near there, some McDonald's. So we flag down a task. We ask them, how much would it cost us to get there? They tell us 45 euro. We say, we can 45 euro just for here. He says, you either take it or leave it. So we quickly do arithmetic. We say, you know what, guys, we better go just to the airport and have our meal there. Mara moja, right? And so we flag down a taxi. Now, by the way, we are about 3/4 to the airport. When the taxi came, we asked him, how much the airport? He says, 55 euro. And so we try to argue about it, and he comes to the door and shows us 55 euro. But we tell him, look, we're not in Roma. He says, you either take it or leave it. And so we have to take the taxi at another 55 euro. That was bad. These taxi guys were bad. I mean, they were really getting us ticked off, but there was nothing we could do about it. The ugly of Italy. First of all, it was a bit of sailing sometimes can get a bit ugly, especially the seasickness. After the first few days, you want to throw up. That was a bit nasty. But at the same time, you settle. Yeah. But I think for me, what was very ugly was one incident as we were in Napoli, waiting to take the ferry boat now to Procida. I'm sitting, my friends are sitting on a table that is full. And so I come and sit on a table just adjacent to them, and there's a path here. And then there's this 2 couples, old couples, that are sitting on this love seat. But this man manages to squeeze himself in the middle, and there's this guy sitting over here. Ideally, they should be sitting on this seat, 2 couples. So I ask them, do you want my seat? Of course, you have to talk like Italiano. Eh? You want my seat? They say, no, happy. The guy say, I'm sandwich here. I am happy. Eh? So we leave. So this waiter comes along, and he comes and says, you, go, sit there. So I look at him. So he goes away, he comes back, he says, I say, move here, go sit there, you sit here. Ask him, talking to me? He say, yeah, you sit there. I say, not moving. And so he wants to get annoyed with me, and he started talking Italiano. I started talking. And I threw one shenzi word at him, no beno. So finally, this old couple tried to tell him, look, this guy tried to give us it. We say no, And then as that was going on, I asked him, is it because I'm black? Black? You're doing this racist? The guy went, he blew up. He says, no racist. I say racist, not racist. And everybody's looking at us. And so, after the couple told him, look, this guy tried to give it a seat, it's settled. Then he came to shake my hand, so I shook his hand. But for me, I was clear that was racism. That's why he was telling me, move here, and I say, not move. I think another ugly thing that I saw in Italy was the Africans. There were many Senegalese. And by the way, they were doing what people do here with our kajo. They come and put their bags down. When they see kajo, they do what? and I thought that was pretty ugly. I thought also, when you moved away from the main tourist fairs, or walkways, you'd find the real Italy. It was a bit dusty, they're dirty sometimes, graffiti everywhere, a bit unkempt, so to speak. And I thought that was ugly. But again, in terms of reflection, at least it gave me the heart that what we do here is not genetic. And that when you allow yourself to go into the shenzi mode, it doesn't matter who. And as I was coming back, I told myself, I will do this again. In fact, we committed amongst the men that next year we're going to Croatia. If you want to join us, you can see me. And I hope through this, you get a sense of the need, I think, to live life outside the box. Not too many of us just go to Jonas to eat meat. And do all those funny things we do the other day. Okay, we're entertaining ourselves, but I think it's good to travel, to see those cohunas, to see those islands. I mean, when that guy was talking about Ischia, Amalfi, Positano, Sorrento, and of course, getting in there as an African and everybody looking at you and thinking you're Americano, but you're Kenyan. I think for me that was good. The taxi guys were bad. The racist was ugly. And I pray that one day you'll also get up and go and feel something for yourself. Thank you very much.